All right, welcome back and thank you so much indeed for staying with us. Now, radical economic transformation, land redistribution, divisions within the ANC and dealing with corruption were some of the main points by ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa as he delivered the ANC January 8 statement in East London on Saturday. Most voters, however, are mostly likely interested to see whether Ramaphosa will do differently to restore the organization and lift the country out of the current socio-economic political state. All right, to take this discussion further, we're joined now in our studios by Dumisani Hlophe. He's a political analyst. Good morning to you and thank you so much indeed for coming through.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Let's start with what many South Africans were talking about, punctuality. Cyril Ramaphosa was well on time and the event started well on time.
Well, that was brilliant. I mean, it shocked a whole lot of journalists. But I think what it might actually signify is the shift in terms of the leadership and management styles from President Jacob Zuma to Cyril Ramaphosa. It will seem thus far that President Zuma operates through individuals to address, what he seeks to achieve. But if you look at Cyril Ramaphosa in terms of punctuality, in terms of what he was saying yesterday in the various interviews, it practically tells you that we are going to witness a leadership and governance management through systems and the processes, which is actually the essence of governance. So you might see a shift from a personality-driven type of leadership and management into a more systematic management. And I think the punctuality issue yesterday, it signals that could be the state of issues to come.
Yeah, that's what he said, that he wanted the government rallies and that of the ANC to start on time going forward. Yeah. But what did you take from what the ANC president said, and what is it that he didn't say according to you? Was there anything missing in his speech?
Well, I think he battled to balance between speaking as a leader of the ruling party of the ANC. At the same time, he was very careful not to be seen to be encroaching onto a content of being the state president, which at this point in time he is not. And I think that difficult of balancing that, it was bound to happen because the ANC is the ruling party. And whoever leads the ANC practically oversees those that are deployed in government. So he struck a balance. So on the one hand, the content, it sounded very, very party political, unity, dealing with factionalism and all of that. And in the next minute, the content is shifted into what government should be doing, dealing with issues of corruption, delivery, fees, free education and all of that. I think he straddled to balance, that stature of being the ruling party president and not necessarily being the state president. But the content, it actually gave him away because I think he did sound like a de facto president, which for me is interesting because then I ask myself, what will be the content then for the State of the Nation address? Secondly, who's going to draft it? And thirdly, there's a very interesting scenario here because when the ANC Lekgotla goes on to determine what government should do, he will chair that session. And at the same time, when the cabinet goes into on Lekgotla, Zuma will chair the session. And yet Ramaphosa, being the ANC president, has to oversee that whilst being the deputy president of the... So it's a very interesting balance of
so it
power.
Which to the two centers of power.
Exactly, which needs some careful, management moving forward. But my gut feel that listening to the content yesterday or on Saturday, I get a sense that the top six will have a greater say in terms of the content of the State of the Nation address. So for me, those power dynamics, they came up quite clearly on Saturday.
And there's been a dominant discourse and expectation that the ANC should compel President Jacob Zuma to resign. Does it really matter if he resigns or stays? And who does it matter for? For the country, for the ANC, or
Look, it does matter. Remember that the campaign towards December conference, it was fought largely on a public platform. It was not limited to the ANC parameters. And that's because the state of this society, in terms of government, the economy, transformation, it has been particularly very, very, enjoy the public interest. And therefore, so the likes of Cyril and Nkosazana Zuma and Lindiwe Sisulu, they fought their campaigns in a public platform. So Ramaphosa promised a change, drastic change for that matter. So when he takes over, there is that expectation that the change will come up now, and not necessarily in 2019. This is why I think there's this greater pressure on the new leadership to say that remove President Jacob Zuma.
Yeah.
So there's one signal now that things are changing, and that has been the institutionalization of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. Now, what others are expecting to happen as a signal of that change is the removal of President, Jacob Zuma.
And we've also seen the reports coming through on Friday that President Jacob Zuma has actually put on some conditions to say, if I resign, then Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma should be the interim president of South Africa until 2019.
Yeah, but that's extremely false news.
Okay.
Extremely false. I think what is happening here is that there's a greater interest in the media to see certain things being done by Cyril Ramaphosa, the top six and all of that. And that particular media expressions and opinion makers' interest, somehow it gets to be parachuted into the agenda of the ANC top six, when frankly, it is not. My take, by the way, I think it will be politically unstrategic for the ANC to actually sit down and take a concrete decision that says Zuma must go, because that will be a duplicate of 2007, of what happened then. I think if he has to go, it would have to take some private conversation between, let's say, himself and the likes of Cyril and Kwete Mantashe or Didi, and they come, to that decision, and then he officially decides, makes that pronouncement. But if it's going to be the NEC that sits officially, recordedly, and said that we recalled the president, then it practically means that the ANC is incapable of managing its leadership, succession, and management. So it doesn't bode well for itself. It needs to be sensitively and acutely managed.
But can the NEC do that? Because there are also reports coming through indicating that they don't have the powers to do so. He was voted the president by the parliament, so only parliament can actually remove him.
No, they can recall him. Anyone who serves in government is a deployee of the ANC. The ANC, Luthuli House-led, can decide that, look, we are redeploying you from where to else. So they can. Those are just processes that had to be followed, but the decision rests with the ruling party.
All right, let's talk about the booing of President Jacob Zuma when he arrived with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. What did you make of that?
Well, I think it was unfortunate, but it was also unfortunate for President to arrive 45 minutes late. So we may not excuse him for that too. But I think what stood up was, Cyril saying that, look, you cannot do that. I think the fact that he rebuked the crowd, the boo boys and girls, I don't know, it was important for him to do that, because what the ANC lacks right now is a sense of statesmanship. There are just too many extremists in the ANC. It's either this thing happens or not. So when you begin to have a president that says that can be done, let's respect one another, it begins to aim a bit of statesmanship.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here on Morning Live, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. I want us to look at the word unity. It was a buzzword on Cyril Ramaphosa's speech on Saturday. Well, let's take a quick break at Morning Live SABC. You can become part of this conversation. We'll be back.